The desert discovery. The desert had a way of swallowing history. Every dune was a grave for cities, caravans, empires. The wind scoured stone and metal down to nothing, until the land itself forgot what had once stood upon it. Kael Draven was used to chasing ghosts. He had been a scavenger all his life, crawling through the bones of the old world in search of scraps to sell. But he was also something rarer, an amateur historian, if such a word still had meaning in a world that barely remembered its own past. Where others saw rusted metal, Kael saw questions. Who built this? What was their dream? That was what had brought him to the deep wastes, farther than most dared go. A map, scratched on brittle vellum, pulled from the ruins of a collapsed archive, had whispered of the resting place of the Admiral. Most dismissed it as myth. Kael couldn't let it go. For weeks he trekked across salt plains and crumbled ridges until, half buried in a sea of shifting sand, he found something impossible. At first, it looked like the flank of a canyon wall, smooth and dark against the gold dust. But no canyon was made of alloy. The surface was seamless, curving away as if it belonged to some colossal construct. His heart thundered as he brushed at the sand with gloved hands. The metal was cool despite the desert heat. Kael stepped back, taking in the scale. A line of dunes obscured most of it, but what he had uncovered was not a wall. It was a hull. An entrance revealed itself when his tools pried loose a buried hatch. The door hissed faintly, like it had only been waiting for someone to ask. Air rushed out, cold, dry, untainted by centuries. Kael swallowed hard, lantern in hand, and climbed inside. The interior was vast. Darkness stretched away in every direction, broken only by faint strips of silver light embedded in the floor. His boots echoed on metal grating. He passed rows of consoles, their glassy faces blank, their designs alien yet strangely human. There were symbols he half recognized, echoes of the ancient tongue he had studied in broken fragments. Deeper still, the silence grew oppressive. He should have turned back, any scavenger with sense would have. But something urged him onward, a tug in his blood. At last he entered a chamber that dwarfed every ruin he had seen in his life. The ceiling arched high overhead, etched with constellations he recognized from his studies. At the center stood a throne-like chair of dark alloy, wires and conduits woven into its base like roots into earth. The air tingled, charged with invisible energy. Kael's hand trembled as he reached for the chair. The instant his skin touched the armrest, the world changed. A deep vibration rolled through the floor. Lights flickered to life one by one, cascading across the walls in golden sequence. Consoles flared, symbols racing across their surfaces. The chamber pulsed as if the ship itself inhaled after 1,000 years. Kael stumbled back, shielding his eyes. Then, a voice. Clear, resonant, feminine, not echoing but everywhere. Awaiting your orders, Admiral. 1,000 years later. Kael froze. His breath caught in his chest. I think you're mistaken, he stammered, voice hoarse. I'm no admiral. The voice responded without hesitation. Genetic confirmation complete. Lineage of Kael Draven verified. Command authority recognized. The flagship Eternum is operational. Flagship. Admiral. The words landed on him with crushing weight. He looked around wildly, as if expecting someone else to appear, someone more worthy. But the chamber was empty. Just him and a machine that had slumbered beneath sand for a millennium, waiting. Kael sank into the chair without meaning to. The surface adjusted to his form, warm, almost alive. Symbols bloomed across the air in front of him, tactical readouts, star charts, warnings he didn't understand. His pulse raced. The ship spoke again, softer this time, almost expectant. Admiral Draven, orders? Kael stared out into the darkness of the chamber, heart hammering, mind reeling. For 1,000 years this vessel had waited, entombed beneath the desert. And it had awakened for him. The desert swallowed many things. But tonight, Kael had unearthed something that would not stay buried. Something that remembered humanity's glory. Something that believed he was its commander. He whispered into the still air, voice trembling. What in the name of the stars have I found? The forgotten Admiral. The ship was alive. Kael felt it in every vibration underfoot, every faint hum reverberating in the alloy walls. The air carried a faint electric tang, sharper than ozone, like the storm before lightning strikes. The longer he sat in the command chair, the more it felt less like a machine and more like a presence. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I am Athena," the voice answered. "Come." "Patient. Primary intelligence of the flagship Eternum. Designed to safeguard humanity's fleets. Designed to obey you." "Me," Kael muttered, shaking his head. "I'm not who you think I am." Athena didn't hesitate. Lineage confirmed. "You are the blood heir of Admiral Kael Draven, Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Armada." "That is sufficient." Kael Draven. The name reverberated in Kael's chest like an echo he'd always known, yet never understood. His grandmother had spoken the family name as if it carried weight, but she'd offered no proof, only fragments of forgotten songs and half-legends. He had thought it little more than ancestry pride, the kind the poor clung to. But now, staring at glowing star charts spiraling before him, Kael wondered if blood really did remember. He found his voice. "What happened here? Why are you buried?" Athena paused, as if choosing her words. Then the chamber darkened, and the stars came alive. A holographic projection bloomed around Kael, filling the air with constellations, shifting, alive with color and movement. "Humanity," Athena began, once commanded the stars. "Your kind spread from soul to the edge of known space. But with expansion came war. The Zyrith Empire, machine-born and flesh-bound, saw your people as a contagion, too adaptive, too willful. They sought to erase you." Kael's throat went dry. He watched the display, fleets colliding in furious arcs of light, worlds burning in miniature. Humanity fought back, brilliant, reckless, stubborn, but always outnumbered. "And Admiral Draven?" Kael asked. Athena's voice softened, almost reverent. "He was the last. When defeat became inevitable, he refused to surrender. He gathered the final fleet, scattered them with hidden orders, and brought Eternum here, beyond the reach of Zyrith sensors. His last command was clear: wait. Humanity will return." The stars dimmed, leaving only the empty chamber, the silence pressing against Kael's ears. 1,000 years ago, his ancestor had hidden this ship, trusting in bloodlines to one day awaken it. And here he sat, a scavenger who had spent his life pawing through broken relics, now declared commander of a vessel that could have changed history. His chest ached with the weight of it. "I can't be what he was," Kael said quietly. "I'm not a soldier. I barely keep myself alive." Athena replied with no judgment, no hesitation. "You are human. That is enough." The words struck him harder than any rebuke. "Humans," Athena continued, "were never chosen for perfection. They triumphed because they adapted, because they defied logic, because when faced with annihilation, they created victory from nothing." Kael rose from the chair, pacing. The enormity of it all threatened to crush him. 1,000 years of silence. A war he had never known, with enemies that might still exist. And now this ship, this Eternum, looked to him for orders. Before he could answer, a warning chime pulsed through the chamber. Red symbols flashed across the consoles. "What's happening?" Kael demanded. Athena's tone shifted, measured, alert. Power signatures detected. Scanning. Local vehicles. Armored. Approaching fast. Kael cursed under his breath. The warlords. The desert was never empty for long. Raiders and self-styled kings ruled the wastes, preying on caravans, fighting over scrap. If word had spread that Kael had unearthed something valuable, it would not take long for greed to drive them here. "They'll try to take you," Kael muttered. "They'll tear this place apart." Athena's voice was calm, certain. "This vessel is armed. Their weapons will be insufficient." Kael's stomach tightened. He pictured the raiders cut down in blinding arcs of fire, slaughtered by a ship they couldn't possibly understand. And he, Kael Draven, would be the one giving the order. For a moment, he closed his eyes. He had spent his life scavenging ruins, piecing together fragments of humanity's lost greatness. He had dreamed of it, longed for it. And now, faced with proof beyond imagination, he felt only fear. But beneath the fear was something else. A flicker, fragile and sharp. Responsibility. He turned back toward the chair, toward the ship that had called him Admiral. "What happens," Kael asked slowly, "if the Zyrith hear that you've woken up?" Athena's reply chilled him. "They already know. Your activation signal has carried. They will come." The words hung heavy in the chamber. Raiders outside, enemies among the stars, and a ship waiting for his command. Kael clenched his fists, heart pounding. The desert had given him scraps all his life. But now it had given him a war. Fire rekindled. The ground shook before Kael even heard the engines. A low rumble rolled through the hull, like distant thunder crawling over the dunes. Outside, in the endless desert night, headlights crested the ridges, dozens of them. Warlord scavengers in armored trucks and jury-rigged tanks, drawn by the whisper of Kael's discovery. "They'll breach the hatch," Kael muttered, pacing. His palms were slick, his throat dry. "They'll strip this place apart for scrap before they even understand what it is." Athena's calm voice filled the chamber. "Orders, Admiral." Kael froze. The word struck him again, heavy as stone. Admiral. He wanted to deny it, to insist he wasn't who she thought he was. But the enemy was real, outside, hungry for blood and plunder. If he did nothing, the Eternum, and whatever chance it held for humanity, would be lost. He swallowed hard and sat in the command chair. "Lock the hatch. Power weapons. But don't kill unless we have to." "Understood." The ship stirred. Deep within the walls, energy conduits hummed, a rising note that made Kael's bones vibrate. Symbols and readouts sprang to life in front of him. A moment later, the first strike came, an explosion against the buried hull. The blast echoed, but the ship did not even shudder. "Primitive ordnance," Athena reported, almost bored. "No threat." On the external displays, Kael watched the warlords fire again and again, shells bursting in flashes of sand and smoke. The Eternum's armor drank the impacts like rain. Kael's breath caught when Athena revealed the ship's defenses, sleek towers rising silently from the sand, their alloy gleaming under starlight. The warlords hesitated, realizing too late that their prey had teeth. "Disable their vehicles," Kael ordered, forcing confidence into his tone. Brilliant lances of energy snapped from the towers, precise and surgical. Engines died in bursts of sparks, tires shredded, turrets melted. Trucks swerved into dunes, trails of smoke marking their defeat. The raiders panicked, firing wildly, shouting curses into the desert wind. Some fled outright, engines howling as they retreated into the darkness. Kael sat stunned. It had taken minutes, for this ship to dismantle an entire warlord convoy. Athena's voice was steady, almost clinical. "Minimal casualties inflicted." "As you commanded." Kael let out a shaky breath. His hands trembled, but not from fear alone. There was something else beneath it now, a current of exhilaration. For the first time in his life, he held power that could not be stolen or beaten down. "This ship," he whispered, "it could unite the cities. Protect caravans. Rebuild." Athena answered quietly, as though speaking to herself. "Humanity could rise again." Before Kael could reply, a harsher alarm blared across the chamber. Symbols burned red across the displays. "Contact detected," Athena reported, her tone sharper now. "Extraterrestrial signature. Zyrith probe fleet entering system." Kael's blood ran cold. "Already? How?" "Your activation signal was not subtle," Athena explained. "They monitor for human signatures. They have waited for this moment as long as I have." On the display, Kael saw them, silver shapes emerging from the void, sleek and angular, like predators cutting through black water. Even at probe strength, their formation dwarfed the raiders outside. This was no scavenger band, it was an empire's hand reaching across a millennium. "Estimated time to orbit, 6 hours, Athena said. 6 hours. Kael stared at the stars projected before him, the enormity pressing down like a weight he could not bear. The warlords were nothing compared to this. The Zyrith had crushed humanity before. They would do it again. He should have felt despair. Instead, Kael felt fire. His life had been spent crawling among ruins, gathering scraps of a world that once was. But here now, he sat in the living heart of that lost greatness. And for the first time, he wasn't a scavenger. He was heir to it. "No more hiding," Kael said, voice steady. "If they're coming, we'll show them what's waiting. We'll show them humanity never died." Athena's lights pulsed in response, like a heartbeat quickening. "Acknowledged, Admiral." The chamber thrummed with energy as the Eternum began to rouse fully, deeper systems awakening, engines stirring from millennia of slumber. The sand above shivered as ancient steel prepared to rise. Kael clenched his fists, resolve burning in his chest. For 1,000 years, the ship had waited in silence. For 1,000 years, the galaxy had believed humanity extinct. That lie was about to end. The Admiral returns. The Eternum broke free of the sand with the fury of a rising titan. Dunes collapsed in avalanches as the buried hull surged upward, glowing seams burning away centuries of desert prison. Kael gripped the command chair as the deck rumbled beneath him, the ancient engines screaming back to life. Above, the night sky split with light. The Zyrith fleet descended, sleek, blade-shaped warships slipping into orbit like shadows with teeth. Even their smallest vessels dwarfed the desert raiders Kael had fought earlier. These were predators honed for one purpose: extermination. "Enemy fleet establishing blockade," Athena reported, her voice sharpened to precision. "Estimate: 1 cruiser, for escorts, numerous drones. Weapon systems active." Kael stared at the projection. His heart hammered. His entire life had been about running, scavenging, surviving. But there was nowhere to run now. Not from this. He drew a slow breath. "Then we fight." "Acknowledged, Admiral." The ship climbed higher, sand streaming off its hull like golden rivers. Then the engines roared, and the desert fell away, replaced by the vast black canvas of space. For the first time in 1,000 years, a human flagship returned to the stars. The Zyrith wasted no time. Drones streaked forward in swarms, jagged things of metal and flesh, spitting plasma fire. Kael flinched as the first barrage slammed against the Eternum's shields, but Athena's voice was steady. "Shields holding. Awaiting your orders." Kael's mind raced. He was no admiral. But scavenging had taught him one thing: when all you had was scraps, you found ways to use them. He scanned the swarm, noting their tight formation, the way they funneled toward the cruiser's line. Predictable. Too predictable. "Target the lead formation," Kael said. "Not to destroy them, split them." Athena obeyed instantly. A ripple of light surged across the Eternum's hull, and then beams of pure energy lanced out. The swarm fractured, drones scattering in confusion. "Now," Kael pressed, leaning forward, "swing us wide. Hit the escort's flanks while they're exposed." The great ship rolled with surprising grace, ancient engines snarling as if eager for battle. Weapons thundered. One escort shattered under the barrage, another limped, venting fire. Kael's pulse quickened. This wasn't just survival anymore, it was a duel. A test between the long-dead Admiral's heir and the enemy that had once erased his people. The Zyrith cruiser moved next, hurling a storm of plasma torpedoes. Athena's shields flickered under the assault, alarms wailing. Critical pressure rising. Kael's jaw clenched. If he met the attack head-on, they'd be overwhelmed. But scavenger instinct whispered another way. "Feed power to the aft shields," he said quickly. "Cut engines on my mark. Let them think they've crippled us." Athena hesitated a fraction. Then, executing. The Eternum shuddered as if wounded, shields dimming, engines stuttering. The Zyrith formation pressed in, confident, tightening the noose. "Now!" Kael shouted. The ship roared back to life, engines flaring at full burn. The sudden surge hurled the Eternum through the weakened flank of the enemy line. At point-blank range, Kael gave the order, "All batteries. Fire everything." The desert-born scavenger became an admiral in that instant. Light consumed the void. The cruiser cracked apart under the barrage, its drones spiraling into chaos, its escorts disintegrating in fire. Wreckage drifted, glowing like embers in the endless dark. Silence followed. Silence, and then the steady, unbroken hum of the Eternum, victorious. Kael sat in the chair, chest heaving, sweat running down his temples. He had done it. They had done it. Against all logic, against all odds, A lone scavenger had outwitted the killers of his species. Athena's voice softened, almost proud. Enemy fleet destroyed. The signal will spread. Others will come. Kael stared at the drifting wreckage. The Xyrith would not ignore this. Humanity's ghost had just shouted into the galaxy, "We are alive." He thought of the broken cities on Earth, the scattered tribes and warlords, the people who no longer believed in the stars. He thought of the hope this ship represented. "Then let them come," Kael said, his voice steady now. "We won't hide. Not anymore." Athena's lights pulsed gently, almost like a nod. "Awaiting your orders, Admiral." Kael rose from the chair, gazing out at Earth's curve below, dawn spilling over its scarred surface. 1,000 years of silence had ended. The galaxy would remember humanity. His lips curved into a fierce, defiant smile. "Then let's remind them what it means to be human."